Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Spann Report Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann. This is episode number 328. 328 of the report, man. And today's episode, at least this episode in particular, is going to be about one thing and one thing only. I'm going to talk a little bit about home ownership and like how to go about doing it, how I went about doing it. And also the reason why I kind of wanted to talk about this was because most of the talk around doing it tends to come from a real negative place. And I know for me, it kind of put me off on the idea as to whether or not I could even do it, like whether it's something that was even feasible or possible for me to do. And after having gone through the process, a lot of the horror stories I didn't experience. So I just kind of wanted to talk about this and like kind of give you guys a little bit of, what my journey was like. So in an event, like you feel like you might want to do the same thing, you can know that you could do it because your man Spann did it too, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But before I get into all of that, I need to let you guys know how to get in touch with us here at the Spann Report Podcast and let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit up the hotline at area code 313-288-0485. This area code 313-288-0485. You can leave voicemails. We'll play those voicemails here live on the show, respond to those voicemails here on the show. But you can also call us live and we can chop it up here while we're doing the show on not only Facebook, but YouTube and Twitch and Periscope. So yeah, hit up the hotline at area code 313-288-0485. You can also email us here at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Go ahead and leave us those emails. And of course, those emails will get right here and reply to here live on the show. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So you can go there, follow me there, chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, go to our website at www.thespannreport.com. You can go there, watch replays of the show. You can vote in the polls when we decide to put those polls up. You can donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like. And of course, we really do appreciate every dime over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network. And you can get yourself some merch, man. Get yourself a t-shirt or a face mask or like a coffee mug or something with our logo on it, man. It's real cool stuff, man. It really helps us continue to do this here and keep the show rolling, man. Real talk. But yeah, also, yeah, 5-star reviews on iTunes. 5-star reviews on iTunes and on Stitcher Radio. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that we'll read here live on the show. It really doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network, man. Real talk. Now, we got the business out of the way. Yeah, man. So like I said, I wanted to kind of talk about this because this is something that it was something that I didn't think was possible for me. Like real talk, like I'm gonna talk a little bit about I'm gonna go some years back because this process actually starts a few years back. That led me to be sitting in my own home today. And I'm gonna just go ahead and get into it, man, because this is the only thing we're gonna talk about on this episode is the journey to home ownership. But my thing started, I want to say probably about 5 years ago. It was about 5 years ago. And the impetus for it starting was at the time I was living in an apartment and the rent at the apartment kept rising, right? The rent at the apartment, it kept going up. I couldn't understand why. I was like, the place don't look like it's getting any better. As a matter of fact, the place has gotten worse the longer I've stayed here. We was only there for maybe, I want to say 2.5, 3 years or something like that. But they had the audacity to continue to check, to up the rent. And in the meanwhile, the central air was a real big thing because the apartment that I had lived in before had no central air, and so in the summertime, I was on one of the upper floors. It was hot as hell in there. And so it made it real uncomfortable to be in that place. Now, it was cool. In the wintertime, that was a cool place to be. But in the summertime, it was hell for real. And so when I finally got this new apartment, one of the selling points was that it had central air. And I'm like, all right, cool. I can do with the central air. I'm on the lower floor, so I ain't got to go up the stairs and shit when I'm, trying to bring groceries into the house or whatever else, man. I can deal with this. And I'm close to shopping. You had all those amenities and stuff that you look for, you're looking for the suburban apartment or whatnot. But like I said, man, the rent kept going up. And at a certain point, the central air stopped working in my master bedroom. So I wasn't getting any air conditioning in the master bedroom. I wasn't getting any heating in the master bedroom. So I had a space heater in that room in the wintertime, and I had like a fan in that room in the summertime. And it was just, it was untenable, right? And like, again, like I said, this place, the rents kept going up. And so I made the decision to like, well, we was going to move, but eventually I wanted to try to figure out like, something a little bit more feasible for my finances, right? So we looked for a few different places. We found a place that we liked, and the requirements were that you had to make at least 3 times the rental amount in order to qualify. So I'm like, all right, well, that's easy. I make 3 times the amount that they charge for rent. So that's easy. I wasn't even worried about whether or not they would accept us or whatever. I'm thinking like that was just a mere formality. And then I got a phone call. I got a phone call from the apartment rental apartment management, and they were saying that yeah, you can't get this apartment. We're not gonna take you guys, man. We can't do it. And I couldn't understand why. And the lady told me that there was an eviction on my credit report. Now, this is something that was news to me. It was news to me. I had never been evicted. I've never been put out of any place because of non-payment of rents and everything else. But it did make me think back to some years prior to this apartment that I'm moving from, that I just moved from, right? So the prior apartment with the heat that was hell, and like that was toasty in the wintertime, but also toastier in the summertime. This was at a time where I was not making a lot of money. Like I was making a lot less money than I make now. And what would happen is, when the rents was coming up short and I'm looking at my rent, I'm looking at my paychecks, and I'm like, man, my paychecks aren't going to cover this. I got to figure something out. What would happen was I would do a hardship withdrawal. I'd tell the building management, hey, put the eviction papers in, and then I can submit those paperwork to my 401k, and I could put in a hardship withdrawal. They get paid, and then I'm able to keep my check and like pay some other bills with this other check that I got coming. And so I did that. And I stayed in that apartment for like 6 years, but I did that probably 3 or 4 times. And so what ended up happening was when, now that I'm trying to get into this other apartment, this townhome I was actually trying to rent, they said, no, because you've been evicted. And I was like, well, I had never been evicted. Those folks had always gotten paid. But that little maneuver that I was doing with my 401k back at the old apartment was coming back to bite me in the ass. But the thing that like, it really made me do was just kind of sit down and really figure out what the hell was on my credit report. Because for a long time, I had been operating with no idea what was on my credit report, operating with no idea what my credit score was. I'd go and apply for credit. Sometimes I get denied, expecting to be denied, but not necessarily knowing why. I financed 2 cars, not knowing what those cars, not knowing what my credit score was. And now that I know what I know now, I figure I probably paid like sometimes 2 and 3 times what those cars were even worth. But what that process did, when that rejection did, was make me maniacal about what was going on with my credit. And so what I did with, the first thing that a lot of folks do, I got on Credit Karma. Right. I got on Credit Karma and I started looking at my score on Credit Karma, and Credit Karma, they showed me what the score was, and the score looked, it wasn't great, but it wasn't like terrible either. Not enough to get some of the shit that I wanted, right? Not enough to get some of the stuff that I wanted, but it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. The thing is, Credit Karma was good for you actually finding out what's on your credit report, right? Like you could actually see some of the accounts that are on your credit report. You could dispute some of the things that were on your credit report. You could see who says you owe, who says you owe them and how much you supposedly owe them. You could see where these debts come from, how old these debts were. So it's really good for that. I use Credit Karma for that primarily. Before I found out that like, the scoring model on Credit Karma was, to me, like ultimately trash. right? The scoring model on Credit Karma, although like it's a different sort of scoring model. Most of the lenders, most of the people who are trying to figure out whether or not you're credit worthy don't use Credit Karma Vantage scores in order to determine whether or not you're credit worthy or not. The vast majority of them don't. And I had to learn this lesson the hard way. And so, but one of the things that happened with Credit Karma on this path to like trying to figure out how to better my credit and everything was that I learned about the idea of secure credit cards. All right. Because I hadn't had a credit card since college when I was at Tennessee State, and I had a Discover card. I had a Discover card at Tennessee State. It was $1,000 my freshman year, and I used that credit card to pay for books. And I bought, pizza. I got a cell phone. I was like 19, doing stupid shit, really. And I never paid that damn card off. When that card was maxed out, it was maxed out. It never got paid. And here we are 20 years later, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at Discover card. Like, I don't even know if they're going to really give me any credit. I never paid that $2,000 from like 20 years ago. And I'm sorry, $1,000. And lo and behold, they're like, well, you can get a secured Discover card. And basically, like the secured Discover card was, you put up $200, and that $200 would be your credit limit, and pay this back as you would any other kind of credit card. So I use that. Right. I use the Discover card as sort of like a gas card. I would buy gas, little trivial things like that with the card just to show usage on it. And I would pay it I'd pay it off consistently and things like that. I ended up getting like a Capital One platinum card, which is like not like they call it a platinum card, but it's really like an entry level card. They should really stop doing that platinum card shit. But yeah, it was an entry level card, man. And just trying to just maintain some level of installment loans, credit, like a revolving account. I went through this process of trying to rebuild my credit, and I became maniacal about it. So much so that I found out that there were other credit monitoring apps. So then I jumped over to the Experian app, and I'm looking at my Experian credit score, and not knowing that the Experian credit app was showing me, TransUnion and what's the other one? Somebody in the chat room help me out here. It's TransUnion, there's Experian, and then it Equifax. Okay, Equifax. But it wasn't updating the Equifax and the TransUnion as often as it was updating the Experian credit score. So, I'm getting the Experian credit score, not knowing what all the other credit scores was. And this is also before I knew that there were different types of credit scores depending on what type of credit you were looking for. So if you're looking for a mortgage, there's a different credit score for that. If you're looking for if you're looking to lease a car or buy a car, there's a different credit score for that. If you're trying to get a credit card, there's a different credit score for that. If you're trying to get a personal loan, there's a different credit score for that. Like, there's so many different credit scores and credit models that they're using, right? And so I'm learning all of this information. I'm learning all of this stuff. And as I'm picking up on this information, of course, as I'm able to kind of pay these bills on a more consistent basis, my credit score started to rise. Now, one of the things that I found out was that, depending on what type of credit you use or what type of credit you're seeking, your score will be different, right? So I could have a 720 overall credit score, but my mortgage scores could probably be somewhere within like 670, 675, 690 or something like that. So it took a while. And I say that to say we moved out of that apartment. Moved into a house, right? And mostly the moving into that house or renting that house was to just kind of test whether or not I would be ready to maintain a house, because I had been living in apartments for so long, and somebody else shovels the snow and somebody else cuts the grass and stuff like that. Would I be able to maintain that while I'm working the way that I work and everything else? So that's really we did that rental house thing for about 3 years before we moved into this home. And one of the reasons why we decided that we kind of wanted to buy a house as opposed to, try to get into another rental was because of the fact that rents continue to go up. Even the home that we moved out of, we were paying double what that man's mortgage was for that home, and one of the things about it was like, I had this idea in my head that like, yo, I'm paying all of the bills here. I'm paying, I mean, even the water bill came in my name in that house, right? Like we got no concessions with that guy when it came to some of the utilities. We paid the water, we paid the gas, we paid the electric, we paid everything. We got no concessions. And yet if I wanted to put a television on the wall, I've got to ask somebody whether or not that's something that I could do. If I wanted to add, we needed an awning on the front porch. Hey, we have to call somebody in order for us to get permission for that to be done. If we wanted to paint the walls in the house, hey, can we paint the walls in here? Like, these are things that you got to ask somebody else to do. Despite the fact that you're paying all this money to stay here, it's still not yours. It's somebody else's. You've got to ask the permission for these things. And so, I made the decision that I wanted to buy a home. I just didn't know how to start. Right? And part of the reason why I didn't know how to start is because, you could talk to some people who bought homes, and sometimes, you may have friends or family who bought homes, but it's been years since they bought their last home, or it's been, since the last time they went through the process. So some things may have changed since the last time they went through the process. They may have some questions, they may have some answers for you, but some of the answers that you might get might not necessarily be satisfactory to you, right? And I had one friend that I would ask every now and again about like the process of buying home. And he was telling me about some so he was telling me about escrow accounts and stuff. I'm like, hey man, no, I'm just trying to figure out how I get started. B, I can find out about the escrow stuff later. I just need to like figure out how to get started. What do I need to get started? And he never really could give me a concrete answer. So, one of the things I did was, like I said, I became maniacal about my credit. I subscribed to my FICO. I get all of my credit scores on a daily basis. Anytime anything happens on my credit, I'm being alerted to it. So like even now, if I get a telephone call from some scammer who's talking about, yo, there's, you owe X amount of dollars to X, Y, and Z entity, is like, yeah, all right, get the fuck off my phone. Whatever you got for me, send it in the mail. I know what's on my credit report, so you can't really scam me that way. But in many times, man, when folks don't know what's on their credit report, they can get got that way because they don't know what's on there. So anybody can call them and kind of like, and kind of like, just like, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Bluff their way into making them spend money that they don't have to spend, right? Like just scamming folks in that way. And so, I just became maniacal about my credit, like, playing utilization games with my credit cards and stuff to boost scores and stuff, consolidating credit card debt at certain points when I thought it would be useful for me, things like that. And so, like I said, slowly but surely, my credit score started to grow, and I started looking into the processes of, okay, so how do I start to try to buy a home, right? And when you go on Google, there's a bunch of different articles that'll come up. There's a bunch of different programs that'll come up. You learn about conventional loans. You can learn about, getting a FHA loan, like the Veterans Association. I mean, the VA has loans. USDA has loans. There's another program, I believe is NACA. They have loan programs for like a bunch of different programs for first-time homeowners. And then on top of that, being in Facebook groups, man, like Facebook groups are very helpful. Like I joined some Facebook groups in order to help me learn different tactics to help me improve my credit. And I'm also in a few like first-time homeowner groups. Even now, I'm still in some of these groups because I'm still learning, right? Like I'm only going to talk to you guys about what my experience was, because this is the only like real like it's the only perspective I can really give you, right? I can only tell you what I went through, and maybe it can help somebody else who's feeling like they don't necessarily have what they need in order to get what they want. And I'm here to tell you that, yo, you might just have everything you need right now and just don't know it, right? And one of the reasons why I really wanted to kind of talk about this topic tonight on this show was because I kept seeing a meme like this. Let me hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull this up so you guys can see this. Let's do this here. All right. Just a second, people. I thought I had this set up already. All right. So I kept seeing this meme right here. All right. It says buying a house is like, and it says, we have no way. It's like the bank speaking to this person. It says, we have no way of knowing you'll pay back this mortgage of $500 a month. And the person responds by saying, I've been paying my landlord $1,000 a month. And the bank responds by saying, well, why can't you save up $25,000 to reassure us that you can afford $500? And they respond by saying, because I've been paying my landlord $1,000 a month, right? And I saw this, I still see this meme kind of being passed around some of the first time homeowners groups and stuff. I still see this meme being passed around quite a bit. And I actually talked about this on my Facebook profile because this is like the furthest thing from what my experience was when it came to buying a home. And I said so. I said, well, I actually said this meme is actually kind of some bullshit, right? This meme is actually kind of some bullshit because I had no experience like that whatsoever when it came to my, the process that I went through in order to buy a home. And the first thing folks will tell you is this: well, that was your experience. You can't discount everyone else's experience. People are having a hard time, and you just be grateful that you had a great experience, but not everyone has that experience. And trust and believe me when I say I understand that. I'm not belittling anybody who's having a hard time, finding the home. I know right now inventory is low, so you got a bunch of people who are bidding on homes, and a lot of folks are getting beat out for homes that they really, really want. I get that, but I'm talking about this specific thing right here. We have no way of knowing you'll pay back this mortgage of $500 a month, right? And they're saying this, buying a house is like this. We have no way of knowing you'll pay back this mortgage of $500 a month. And anybody who's going through the process knows that one of the very first things you'll do is go through an income verification, right? So one of the things I did, because like I talked to a lender first, right? I talked to a lender first. Before I did anything, I talked to a lender. And I got people trying to message me right now. What the hell's going on? Okay. I'm going to have to get back to you. I'm recording right now, buddy. Hold on. Sorry. I talked to a lender first. And one of the reasons why I talked to the lender was because I needed to know how much I could qualify for. Right. I need to know how much buying power I would have in going to search for a home. And I would suggest that people actually talk to a lender once you get once you get some things together. Talk to a lender to find out what you would qualify for. Right. So first thing I did, I talked to a lender, and it's crazy. Like, you can go on these websites, man, and they're on it like that. The minute you put in the submit button, you probably got somebody calling your telephone within the next 2 minutes. They're on it like that. Right. And I talked to a lender, and the first thing he asked me was, how much money did I have? And I gave him a roundabout number. I was like, I think I got about like $15,000, something like that. And he said, well, he wanted to know where I worked. He wanted to know how long I worked there. And he wanted to know, how much money I made a year, and whether or not I could verify that. So I told him how much I made, and then he asked for 2 check stubs. And he also asked for the W-2s from my last 2 years of employment. Right now, the $15,000 number, he didn't know where that money was coming from. And truthfully speaking, I was just kind of like, fishing for information. I didn't necessarily have $15,000 on hand when I talked to him. Right. I just didn't have it. But he said, like, okay, he took that information and he gave me a pre-approval letter. I got a pre-approval letter within a couple of days after they ran my credit, which is also kind of funny because he asked, could he run my credit? And I asked him, well, which credit model are you looking for? And that's a good thing to have. Like, it's a good thing to know this sort of information. I said, well, which credit model are you looking for? He said, well, we're going to look at your mortgage scores. Do you have access to that? And I said, yeah. And I pulled up my FICO, and he said, okay, well, give me your middle score. And at the time, my middle score for a mortgage was 682, right? So once he had that, once he had the 2 check stubs, and he had the W-2s, I got the pre-approval letter for $300,000, right? And so now I'm going out into the world to go look for homes and shit, right? I can go out and look. I got this pre-approval letter behind me that's backing me. I can go out to these homes, and I can make offers now because this pre-approval letter pretty much says, like, all right, we're willing to back this dude with $275,000 towards, or $300,000 towards the purchase of this home, and I can go out and I can do what I need to do. Now, first thing I do, I'm on Zillow. I'm looking at houses that I like. I'm like, okay, I want to go see this one. I want to go see this one. I want to go see this one. And of course, when you do that, now the realtors start showing up. The realtors start calling you. And the realtors were like, okay, do you want to go see this home? We can set this home up for, I can set this up for you to go see this at, such and such time. What time's good for you? And I had one guy come, like he reached out to me. My realtor at the Zach Alcanash. Zach Alcanash was my realtor. And he reached out to me, and he had that very same day I was out looking at a house and whatnot. And we went to one house in what was it? Redford, Michigan. Was it Redford? Either Redford or Livonia. I can't remember exactly what township it was in. But it was this one home that I really was like impressed with. But at the time we were looking at this home, it was an open house. So there was a bunch of people looking at this home. And we were I really wanted this house because it was a 4-bedroom house. It had a finished basement, nice entertainment space in the basement. It had a kitchen in the basement, pool table, and everything else in the basement. A lot of the like the laundry and things like that were kind of sectioned off. You couldn't really see it. There was a lot of storage in the basement. That 4th room would have been a really good podcast studio for your boy. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking about that, having it as an office. So like I'm down below, and I don't make a lot of noise when I'm recording and whatnot. And updated kitchen, everything, right? I offered the house was only like, they were only asking at 187 for the home. I offered $210,000 for that house, and we didn't get it. Right? We didn't get it because the loan that I qualified for was an FHA loan. So the other part about this that a lot of folks need to know is that like the FHA loan, yeah, they're only going, like, you can offer that much, but FHA is only going to pay for what the house appraises for. And so if that person says, okay, you offered us $210,000, we're going to take you up on that $210,000 offer. But FHA is like, yeah, but this house only appraises for 185. You got to figure out the difference. How you going to come up with that? Right. So luckily, like I said, I didn't have this money. I didn't have this cash on hand. So luckily we ended up getting beat out on that house. They took another offer. Somebody else probably had a contingency where they would come up with the cash for that home and everything. And we started looking at houses in different areas in different parts of the Detroit area, because that's where I am. And we started looking at different houses. There were houses on the north end of Detroit, an area that I used to live in, by the way, which is, has seen some better times. But is like ironic, like it was coming back to a certain degree. Like there were certain homes that we saw one home that I can remember maybe 15 years prior was pretty damn run down. And I'll be damned if we wasn't going back to that house to go look at it. And they had totally remodeled this house, and they were asking like $213,000 for this house on the north end side of Detroit. Like, and there was some, $210,000 for that neighborhood. You're like, oh man, but they don't have a garage, you don't have an alley, I don't want to park my car on the street, that sort of thing. You start looking at things like, this house is nice, but now I got to start figuring out what I'm willing to live with, what I'm willing to pay for. Does it have any appliances? Do I need to go buy appliances? Which is a whole other thing. That's a whole other nightmare with this coronavirus thing, man. Like, getting appliances and whatnot. But we started looking at different houses and stuff. We started looking in the Dearborn area, started looking in Livonia, started looking in Hazel Park, started looking in different parts of Detroit. And we saw probably about 15 houses. We only put in offers on 2. And we got our offer accepted on the second home that we put an offer in. Now, part of the reason why I think a lot of people are having trouble buying a home is not because they can't get financing for the home. It's because there's not enough right now at this particular time. There's just not enough like homes to go around for people who are looking to buy. And there are also people who are working with just like having cash offers who are able to just kind of put this sort of money up. And they're like, they are able to kind of supersede those who are using like an FHA loan, who don't have the money as a contingency should FHA only appraise a house for a certain amount or anything like that. So, yeah, man. So we put the offer in on the house and it was accepted. And then the process becomes, a thing of like going through underwriting, right? So we went through the underwriting process, and the thing with underwriting is that you want to be able to get these people this information in a timely fashion. The faster you can get them the information, the faster they can process it, the faster you can get to your clear to close. And so my thing was, like, I work in construction. It's kind of hard for me to like just get access to some of this stuff while I'm at work, right? So like the loan officer is calling me like, yeah, so we need an additional check stub. Can you get us a check stub? I say, well, yeah, that'll probably be later on tonight. I can get it to you tonight. And they're like, all right, that's fine, but just as soon as you can get it to us, that's great. And I'd be frustrated because I want to get it to them right then. I want this shit done today. I want it done now, right? And so they'd ask for things like that, or they'll ask for not just a check stub, they'll ask for an additional bank statement. Okay, so I'm like, okay, I just gave you all the last 2 weeks of my bank statements. Okay, so we're gonna need another week passes. We need another week's bank statements, and so you give them another week's bank statements, and it kept going back and forth like that. And I had this one thing with my loan officer where I would, pull up my bank statements on my tablet or on my phone, and I try to send them that, but they can't take screenshots because, people can fake screenshots. But also, like I would try to download it on and as a PDF and send it over to them. But if it didn't have a certain like URL on it, they couldn't accept that either. So that was kind of frustrating. I had to wait till I got home, get to a computer and do that. But ultimately, it was all to kind of protect me. Right. It's frustrating as it was to have to like continue to go back and forth with them over, some of the information. Like, as long as I was able to produce the information, that was good. Now, the other thing about like when you put an offer in on the home, and this is something that I didn't know until after I had an offer accepted, was that I had to come up with some earnest money. Right. I didn't even know what the hell earnest money was when they asked me. Like, my realtor's like, oh yeah, so we got to come up with some earnest money. And I just like threw a number out there. Like, all right, I guess, because I didn't know what I was supposed to offer. So I was like, okay, so how much am I supposed to like $2,000? He was like, oh, so you got $2,000? I said, yeah. So I had to come up with the 2 G's real quick, and I didn't have it on hand at the time. So luckily, my in-laws gifted us $2,000 for us to put the offer in and put the earnest money up. And so you have to document that as well. You have to document, okay, so where did this money come from? Who gave it to you? What is your relationship to them? Can you get the checking account information for the people that this money came out of? You got to verify all of that stuff. And it's, again, to, prevent fraud, and it's to protect you, it's to protect them, it's to protect the investment and everything else. But, yeah, so after that, I'm going through the underwriting, having them like go through my finances with a fine-tooth comb and all these other things. Mostly like going through the underwriting process was essentially just to see if I was, one, going to do some silly shit like take out a loan during this process, which is something that you don't want to do. If I was going to co-sign anything, which is another like bill, which is something that you don't want to do. They basically want to see if you're going to be, is your money consistent? Are you going to be able to afford to pay for this investment that they are entrusting you with X amount of dollars to pay back? This is what they're trying to do when it comes to underwriting. And so that's why they're so stringent in going through your finances and everything like that. I looked up and I got a clear to close. And I thought I was going to cry, man. I didn't cry, but I thought I was going to cry when I finally got that clear to close, man, because this is something that I never thought I would be able to do, would be to buy a home. I was one of those people who thought that you had to have at least 20% of the, I was one of those people who thought that you had to have at least 20% of the sales price of the house in order to buy a house. And that may still be true for folks who are going through the conventional loan process. But yeah, man, like I never saw for myself a home ownership thing because of, one, the way in which people talk about buying a house. The way in which people talk about buying a house. My friend Kay is in the chat room. She says it feels so it was tedious. It was tedious. Some of the things I was like they were asking for, I was just like, all right, man, for real, But I think for me, I think for me, like the thing was Like they were asking me for this stuff while I was at work, and I couldn't get it to them because I was at work. Right. Like if I was at home and I was in front of my computer and stuff like that, it would be nothing for me to get them this information. But because I was at work, now I'm thinking about this all day long while I'm at work. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so I got to get this and I got to get this and I got to figure out this, that, and the other. Now, the $2,000 was the only monies that like I ever really like. The $2,000 was a gift from my in-laws, but then I had to come up with like $500 for the inspection. Once the offer was accepted, we had the inspection, which was $500. And we were here doing the inspection. He was showing, he showed me a couple things that were going on in the basement, but those were things that I was, well equipped to kind of handle myself. Because of, the work that I do in construction and things like that. So these are things that I was familiar with because of the job. One of the things I wish we had caught though is that they didn't have a vent for the dryer line and shit. Like I had to like cut a hole in my wall and shit for the dryer. But I was able to do it. I drill holes in walls every day, so I was able to do it. But yeah, like the inspection was like $500, and after that, it's just a process of signing paperwork after that. Once you get that clear to close and making sure you got the day off or you got the time to sit there and sign all of those papers. And that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. Like, it went from a thing of like finding out what was on my credit, here's what happened. Being embarrassed about being rejected for an apartment because of an eviction that never actually happened, but being rejected for an apartment because of information about me that I had no idea about. And that made me more stringent, more strident as to, okay, what's going on with my finances, being smarter about my money, being smarter about how I pay bills. Making sure that everybody gets paid in a timely fashion. When I was younger, I had an attitude of like, they'll get paid when I pay them, if I pay them at all. Like that was pretty much my attitude for years, man. It was a bad attitude to have. And I wish like I knew now, I wish I knew then what I know now when it comes to credit, when it comes to some of these programs as far as home ownership and things like that. And so I kind of wanted to talk about relatively how easy the process was for me, because every time I hear people talk about the prospects or the process of trying to buy a home, everybody always talks about it in such a negative light. And I know for me, the way in which people talked about trying to buy a home turned me off to the process for years, to where I probably could have started this process even before I did this. Like I could have been further along in this. But sometimes things happen the way that they're supposed to. Had I not been rejected for that apartment, would I be sitting in my own home today? Who knows? But I'm here to tell people, man, like there are people who don't believe that they have the ability to own a home, who have the credit, right? Who may need some financial assistance, and the financial assistance is available to them if they know where to look for it. There are people who want to buy a home, but unfortunately they live in an area where the homes that they can afford aren't available in the area that they're seeking to live in. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in the home ownership thing right now, is that especially like when you start thinking about places like California, you see some of the home prices in California, you start seeing some of the home prices in New York, some of like the East and the West Coast, like those prices are insane. And then you look at the prices in the South and you're like, man, I am fucking jealous. You could live in a mansion for the prices we paying up here, right? so like, I think by and large, man, I want to encourage people. I want to encourage people that like, if I could do it, then you could too, because this is something that honestly, I didn't set aside a shit ton of money. In order to like buy my home. And like, let's even get to the closing costs and stuff, right? Because I didn't talk about the closing costs. Remember we were talking about how I used to take monies out of my 401k back years ago, like in order to avoid an eviction. Well, I went back to my 401k, and that's where I got my closing cost money from. And I will say this: I know a lot of folks are not necessarily fans of taking money out of your 401k. I did take a hardship withdrawal loan. I mean, a hardship withdrawal out of my 401k in order to pay for pay the closing costs. But I will say this: had I known, I wish I'd have taken it out as a loan. Right? I wish I had taken it out as a loan, because essentially I'm borrowing money from myself, and I'd have been just paying myself back. But if you're gonna take monies out of your 401k, I believe that like home ownership is probably the most legit reason why you should ever even consider it. Because you're buying not only a primary residence for some, buying a primary residence. And as a matter of fact, if you're taking it out of your 401k, it's got to be for a primary residence in most cases. But if you're taking monies out of your 401k to buy a home, not only is it going to be your place, but then hopefully like that, your home becomes an appreciating asset to where the value of that home grows and it begins to pay for itself after a certain point. You may end up selling your house at a later time, man, and like almost doubling what you put into it. So, yeah, man, I just felt like I needed to talk about this only because I see so many people talking about how hard it is to get a home, how hard it is to buy a home. And I feel like it's mostly about like the void of information that is available to them, or that they don't know that it's available to them. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions that you wanted to ask of me, I'm here, and you can hit up our hotline. Like I said, at area code 313-288-0485. You can hit up the hotline. And again, area code 313-288-0485. You can also email us here at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Leave those emails, and of course, those emails will be here. Will be read here and replied to here live on the show as well. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead, follow me there, chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, hit up our website at www.thespannreport.com. Go there, watch replays of the show. The show will be available on the website in video form and audio form. You can also hit us up on iTunes and or Stitcher Radio with a 5-star review. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get read here live on the show. We appreciate everybody who does that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network. Now, this is but one episode that we're going to do tonight, right? This particular topic I just kind of wanted to talk about because I've been seeing it quite a bit, and it's been something that I've experienced recently. So I just kind of want to give my experience on it, and hopefully somebody else can learn from it and maybe get a home themselves, man. That'd be dope. And I think everybody should, like, at least if you have an opportunity, try to own a home, man. Try to own a home. And we could talk about some of the socioeconomic and like political reasons and everything else on like a regular Spann Report episode. But yeah, man, real talk. If you have an opportunity to buy a home and you have the means to do so, that's the other part, man. I just don't try to do anything above your means, right? I think that's the most important thing. Don't try to do anything above your means. But yo, man, we're going to get on up out of here because we got a whole other show to do. And I will talk to you guys again soon. But until next time, fam, peace.